Tale of the Sun and Moon by Megan Slime. Episode 14, Scarred. Part 1, Brothers. 34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Siwang Desert. Wearily, Raiden, Taki, Liana, and Michi ride on Isla's back as she walks steadily across the vast desert wasteland. The sun gradually rises past the horizon and into the clear sky above. Its rays scorch the sand and all those on it.
Didn't we say we'd rest during the day because of the heat?
Isla seems especially tired from carrying all of us. Think we should stop, Raiden?
Raiden gives no response, but slows Isla to a stop and dismounts. Taki and Liana also get off, allowing Isla to plop down and sleep. Michi remains on Isla's back and curls up in a ball to rest. Yawning, Liana walks over to a slanted sand dune to lie down.
Finally.
Taki lies down next to Liana as Raiden moves slightly away from them to sit.
Do you still have your water, Taki?
Not much. I'm sure we're all thirsty, but I still need to heal, right?
My wounds are fine. They're no longer bleeding. We should divide up the remaining water to drink. That hydration should hopefully sustain us long enough to escape this desert.
Very well.
Everyone, including Isla and Michi, opens their mouths as Taki bends the last of her water over to them. As Liana swallows her water portion, her eyes slowly slide shut.
Water has never tasted so good.
I only wish I had more water for us. This heat is unbearable.
I bet you miss your home in the Northern Water Tribe right about now. With all the ice, snow, and water.
Thoughtfully, Taki rolls onto her back and gazes up at the sun.
Yeah, I suppose. Despite having some family there, I didn't really fit in. It never truly felt like home to me. I hope finding my father will finally give me a feeling of belonging.
In my experience, home is where and who you make it to be. And now you've got Isla, Michi, and me, and Raiden.
Very true.
Taki glances over at Liana and realizes she's now asleep. With a content smile, Taki turns and sees that Raiden is still sitting up on a short distance away. She gets up and moves to sit down next to him.
We all agreed to rest. You need it most with all of your injuries.
Raiden says nothing.
Do your shoulder and head still hurt?
Nothing I can't handle.
Exhaling slowly, Taki looks down.
When I healed your shoulder before, I saw all the burned whip scars.
With furrowed brows, Taki looks over at Raiden, with bated breath waiting for his response. Staring forward, Raiden breathes in and out quietly.
What do you want me to say, Taki? Do you honestly want me to describe the horrors of my past?
Taki looks away as her eyes drift down.
I just want to know you, and to know what happened to make you the way that you are today.
With intent eyes, Raiden turns to Taki, and she stares back at him with expectant eyes.
Know this, Taki. Sometimes there are no words for certain experiences one endures.
Without another word, Raiden stands and moves past Isla and Michi to lie down facing away from everyone. Taki watches him go with sad eyes. With a heavy sigh, she moves back over to Liana and lies down to rest. 25 AG, Fire Nation, North Chungling. At the break of dawn, 6-year-old Raiden and Hakan wear simple Fire Nation pants and arm bracers while executing various firebending moves without any fire. Keita slowly walks behind them, studying each of their movements. Narrowing her eyes at Hakan, she suddenly ignites a whip in her hand on fire.
Bad form!
Without hesitation, Keita slashes Hakan's arm with her flaming whip. Hakan grabs his injured arm as Raiden looks over to him with wide eyes.
You may be the youngest, Hakan, but I expect you to excel as equally as your brother. You are twins, after all. Now, again.
The boys proceed to train more, but Keita whips Hakan once again with a flaming weapon.
Focus your breath, Hakan.
He'll get it, Mom.
Without a word, Keita whips Raiden on the shoulder.
Did I give you permission to speak, soldier? And I've told you both before, when we're training, I am your general only. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Again.
The twins begin going through several more firebending techniques as Keita observes closely.
Dad would have never trained us like this.
What did you say, soldier?
Still gripping her flaming whip in one hand, Keita moves to stand in front of Raiden. Half terrified and half defiantly, Raiden stares up at his mother.
It's just that Ever since Dad died last year, you've become so cold and controlling.
Is that so? Do you both think this?
Kata glances over at Hakan, who blinks up in fear at his mother. He looks down without saying a word. She turns back to Raiden.
You need to understand something, Raiden. Your father is gone. He died fighting for our nation, and you two can honor him by training to become the best firebending soldiers in our great nation's military.
Kata turns around and pauses a moment. Then she suddenly whirls back around to whip Raiden across the chest. He doubles over in pain on the ground.
Everything I do is for the honor of our family and the glory of our nation.
But Mom, what if we don't want to fight?
Neither of your destinies are your own, my son. This is the life fate has dealt you and your brother. Embrace it.
Hakan looks down as Raiden slowly stands up, still gripping his reddened chest.
Now, let us continue your training. Very soon, both of your firebending will awaken.
34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Siwang Desert. With the sun high in the sky, Hakan staggers forward across the vast desert sands. His side injury continues to bleed slightly as he grips it tightly. He has used part of his shirt to bandage the wound. In a daze, Hakan slowly stumbles onward. He stops when he hears a few yells nearby. A moment later, 3 sand sailors carrying several sand benders appear over a wide sand dune. A few of the sand benders instantly spot Hakan and quickly bend their vessels over to him.
What do we have here? Some injured vagrant wandering alone through our desert?
How'd you get here, stranger?
Ignoring them completely, Hakan keeps on walking. He stops when the leader of the sandbenders bends a barrier of sand in front of him.
These are all sands, boy. You'd do well to answer us.
I don't answer to filth.
A few of the sandbenders leap off the sailors and take a step towards Hakan.
What did you say?
Sounds to me like this stranger needs to learn a thing or two about the sand people.
Exhaling in annoyance, Hakan turns around to face them.
I know all I need to know about you grimy nomads.
Oh, boy, you sure know how to pick your fights, don't you?
I just know bad things happen to those who are foolish enough to mess with me.
That's big talk from someone who's badly injured and sorely outnumbered.
The odds make no difference. I don't lose.
We'll see about that, boy.
The leader nods to the other sandbenders, who quickly race towards Hakan and bend a wave of sand at him. Despite the searing pain from his side, Hakan dives out of the way and rolls down the sand dune.
Not so tough now!
That does it.
In a rage, Hakan stands and unleashes a flurry of flame attacks towards the sandbenders, who quickly scatter and use sand to defend themselves.
He's a firebender!
Take him down.
Immediately, all of the sandbenders move in to encircle Hakan as he continues firing blasts of flame towards them with one hand and various kicks. The sandbenders easily douse his fire attacks with their sand.
Too bad your fire's useless against us.
Let's end this.
The sandbenders move in closer and bend quick blasts of sand at Hakan, who desperately tries to dodge and block them with fire. Because of his wound and their sheer numbers, Hakan is quickly overcome. A powerful blast of sand smashes into his head, breaking the hair tie on his ponytail. Several more sand blasts strike Hakan, rendering him too weak to stand. He collapses to the sand with his straight, dark brown hair hanging loose around his head and face. The sandbenders move in to surround Hakan.
Looks like we got ourselves a new slave.
So much for the all-powerful firebenders.
Several sandbenders quickly bind Hakan's hands behind his back and drag him over to one of their sand sailors. 26 AG, Fire Nation, North Chungling. At dawn, Kata stands off to the side of the training field as 7-year-old Raiden and Hakan face each other some distance away.
Match start!
Instantly, the two boys race towards each other at top speed. Once they reach each other, Hakan starts the fight by unleashing several quick punches at Raiden, who quickly evades each of the blows. Raiden then spins and kicks his brother in the side. This sends him stumbling backwards. Raiden doesn't let up. He advances and throws several quick jabs at Hakan, who blocks them with his forearms. With rising aggravation, Hakan whirls around with a wide kick attack. Narrowing his eyes, Raiden ducks and does a low spin of his own to knock Hakan off his support leg. He lands with a thud in the dirt as Raiden stands above him, victorious.
Winner is Raiden. Again.
Igniting her whip, Kata walks over to Hakan, still on the ground. She whips him on his side, causing Hakan to let out a short cry of pain.
Failure is not an option. Get up, soldier.
It takes one more whiplash to get Hakan off the ground. He stands up and glares over at Raiden. Kata walks back over to the side of the field.
Again!
Raiden turns to move back to the starting spot, but Hakan doesn't move to his. Instead, he charges at Raiden with his fist raised high. Caught off guard, Raiden turns around just as Hakan punches him in the face and then kicks him in the gut. Clutching his stomach, Raiden stumbles back, but quickly regains his composure. As Hakan runs at him again with another punch, Raiden swiftly dodges and grabs Hakan's wrist to spin him around and thrust him to the ground once again. Wide-eyed, Kata strides over to him with her whip at the ready.
Hakan!
Before Kata reaches Hakan, he exhales deeply and balls his hands into fists.
I'm so sick of losing. No more!
In a rage, Hakan stands and thrusts both his arms out, which sends a bright burst of fire outwards. Raiden and Kata stop in their tracks and stare at Hakan in awe. Somewhat in shock, Hakan looks down at his closed fists and slowly opens them.
I'm a firebender.
With a slight raise of her eyebrow, Kata douses her whip.
Given the awakening of your firebending, I'll overlook your blatant failure today.
She moves to Hakan and places her hand on his shoulder.
Congratulations, my son. Because of your fire, you are now set on the path of power, honor, and glory.
Hakan glances over at Raiden, who takes a small step towards his brother.
Congrats, Khan.
Silent, Hakan looks down at his hands once again. 34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Siwang Desert. Walking in silence, Taki, Liana, Michi, Raiden, and Ayla trudge through the sand dunes with the sun bright in the sky. All of them grow more exhausted with every step through the hot sand.
If only we had water.
If we keep heading west, we should come to the edge of the desert. Eventually.
As they go, Liana steadily slows her pace as her dehydration takes over. Swaying and staggering with fatigue, Liana suddenly collapses. Everyone stops as Taki and Michi run over to Liana.
Liana!
I'm just so thirsty.
Unsure of what to do, Taki looks to Raiden, who moves to help Liana stand.
She should ride on Isla for now.
Raiden helps Liana onto Isla's back as Michi jumps up next to her. Slowly, Taki stands and exhales quickly. Suddenly, she widens her stance and starts waving her arms and twirling her hands through the air. Raiden and Liana stare over at her with furrowed brows. Focusing intently, Taki continues whirling her arms through the air gracefully.
Taki, what are you?
Liana stops talking when she notices small water droplets form in the air near Taki's hands. Sweat forms on Taki's brow as she continues swirling her arms intensely. Eventually, a small amount of water has formed from the air. Slowing her arms, Taki stands upright, somewhat out of breath.
By cooling the air, I tried bending what little moisture there is into water, though I'm better suited to heating water than cooling it.
That's still incredible.
Here, Liana, you should have most of it.
Taki bends a sizable portion of the water floating about into Liana's mouth. Then she gives a small bit to both Ayla and Michi. Taki goes over to Raiden to give him some, but he shakes his head.
You drink it.
Taking a step towards him, Taki narrows her eyes at Raiden defiantly. With a slight roll of his eyes, he opens his mouth to accept the few droplets she has to offer. Taki drinks the remainder.
Thank you, Taki.
Sorry I couldn't do more.
It's better than nothing. Your waterbending may have just saved us. Bending never ceases to amaze me.
At this comment, Raiden starts walking and gestures for Ayla to follow, which she does so obediently. Taki exhales and follows as well. 26 AG, Fire Nation, North Chongling. Alone in a small room, 7-year-old Raiden walks among several cabinets and shelves filled with miscellaneous weapons and armor. He stops in front of a long metal staff leaned up against the wall. A moment later, Hakan stops in the doorway.
Ah, there you are.
Hakan walks over to Raiden, who says nothing.
What are you doing in here?
Realizing Raiden is still staring forward, Hakan also turns to gaze at the staff before them.
Do you remember when Dad showed us this staff? You said it's been in our family for generations.
Honestly, I don't see why a generational family of firebenders would ever need this or any other sort of weapon. Fire is naturally the best weapon of choice.
A moment passes, and Raiden looks down.
What if I never become a firebender?
Right, your inner fire will awaken. You'll see any day now.
Raiden nods, but continues looking down. 34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Siwang Desert. Groggily, Hakan opens his eyes to find himself tied up and lying on a wooden sand sailor. Several sandbenders stand near him, bending sand into the sail to maneuver the sand sailor across the desert. One of them notices Hakan's awakened and gives him a smug grin.
Look who's finally awake, our ash slave.
Hakan turns to look up at the sandbender for a brief moment before suddenly spitting on his foot. Without hesitation, a sandbender grabs Hakan's shirt to lift him up slightly so that he can punch him hard on the cheek. With a quiet moan, Hakan faces away from the sandbender, who stands upright, towering over him. Hakan's cheek begins to bleed slightly.
You flaming tyrants gotta learn that you're not invincible. You'll never conquer the desert. This is our element, not yours. All of your precious fire is useless against us. You're powerless.
With that, the sandbender harshly kicks Hakan in the gut, causing him to give a short grunt of agony. His side wound emanates sharp, unrelenting pain. As Hakan tries to catch his breath and ease through the excruciating pain, the sandbender laughs maliciously over him.
So much for your almighty firepower. You've lost, Firebender.
Narrowing his eyes, Hakan suddenly breaks apart his rope bonds with a massive flame burst, which causes the sandbender to stumble backwards. In a rush, Hakan stands and punches both his fists downward into the wood deck of the sand sailor to ignite an instant inferno. Clutching his wounded side, Hakan leaps from the burning sailor and topples down a steep sand dune.
The prisoners escape!
Just then, the flaming sand sailor crashes right into another sailor, and it instantly catches ablaze. The sandbenders run about in a craze and dive off the sailors as they flip and roll down the opposite side of the sand dune. Despite the piercing pain of his injury, Hakan stands and forces himself to run as fast and as hard as he can away from the sandbenders. On the other side of the sand dune, the sandbenders frantically bend sand onto the broken and burning sand sailor.
The Firebender! He's getting away!
Leave him. Our priority is the sailors. We'll worry about that wounded wretch later.
Fine, but he better pay for this.
Now far into the distance, Hakan keeps running long and hard across the hot sand as blood trickles from his cheek and side. Even though his breath is shallow and his strength is failing, Hakan pushes onward under the scorching sun. In a different part of the desert, Liana and Michi ride on Isla's back as she slowly walks through the sand terrain. Raiden walks behind them as Taki leads the group at the front. Looking up for the first time in a long while, Taki stops as her eyes grow wide.
Hey, I think I see something on the horizon.
Everyone else stops as well and looks where Taki points ahead. They see the small shape of what appears to be a settlement.
We made it! The edge of the desert!
Raiden moves beside Taki.
Onward.
With a little more pep in their step, the group continues on towards the shape in the distance. Gradually, they see that it is a small village of various stone buildings. With a great sigh of relief, the group moves to the center of town where Liana dismounts Isla and continues holding Michi. Isla runs forward and begins licking a strange iceberg extending out of the sand. Taki's eyes rest on a tavern-looking structure.
They should have water there.
Raiden moves toward the tavern with Taki and Liana close behind him. They enter the darkened building and move to the counter. Almost immediately, Raiden pulls out a handful of coins and places them in front of the bartender.
We need food, plenty of water, and room for the night.
With a slight raise of her eyebrow, the bartender takes the coins and drops some food and water pouches onto the counter.
There's a 2-bedroom hut available on the edge of town, facing the desert. It's all we've got left.
We'll take it.
Very well. It's the one with the roof overhang.
Thank you.
Each of them grabs some of the supplies and they all exit the tavern. As they move past the ice form, Isla runs over and walks next to them.
It's a good thing they have an open hut for us. We could all use the rest.
Now that we have water, I should really do some more healing on your wounds.
If you insist.
I do.
And just another instance of your bending's usefulness.
Uneasily, Taki glances over at Raiden and then back at Leanna.
Bending isn't everything, Leanna.
Oh, I know. For so many years I wished I had never been born a bender. Because of all the earthquakes. But now I'm starting to see what a gift it is.
A gift only given to some.
Taki and Leanna look over at Raiden with wide eyes as he walks ahead of them, out of earshot. The girls and the animals walk slower now.
Oops. I didn't mean to. I was just...
It's okay, Leanna. I'm sure Raiden's heard the glorification of bending all his life.
I can't imagine what it would have been like growing up with a twin brother who could bend an element, while you can't.
I'm sure it was very difficult. Still is. I don't think Raiden and Hakan have fully recovered from their past.
27 AG, Fire Nation, North Changling. At dusk, 8-year-old Raiden stands alone in the middle of the training field behind their house in North Changling. He glances down at his hands and slowly balls them into fists. He then proceeds to form a series of intense firebending moves void of any real fire.
Come on! Fire!
Unrelenting, Raiden continues pounding through every firebending move he knows. His heart beats wildly in his chest as he thrusts his fist swiftly through the air. No fire ever appears.
No. Please. Fire!
Despite all his efforts, Raiden is unable to create any fire. Even still, he continues going through his firebending techniques as heavy tears stream down his face.
No.
Right?
Raiden stops and turns to find his brother standing a short distance away, staring at him with furrowed brows.
God.
Physically and emotionally spent, Raiden falls to his knees and onto his hands. Hakan rushes over to him and puts his hand on Raiden's back. He feels his brother's entire body tremble.
Right. What's wrong?
I can't do it. I can't make any fire. No matter what I do.
You just need to give it time, right? Just you wait. Your inner fire will awaken any...
No!
Raiden pushes his brother back and falls to his side. Hakan lands a few feet away from Raiden.
You see, Khan, I'm never going to bend fire. I'm a non-bender.
Speechless, Hakan stares back at his twin brother with wide eyes. With tears still streaming down his face, Raiden looks down.
I have no inner fire.
An endless moment passes as the twin boys sit in silence. The sun disappears beneath the horizon.
And what do we have here?
Wide-eyed, both boys turn to find Keita standing at the edge of the training field, hidden partially in the shadows of the trees. Slowly, she walks towards them.
What is this I hear of no firebending?
Keita stops between the boys and stares down at Raiden with intense eyes.
No son of mine is a non-bender.
Gasping for air, Raiden stands hurriedly.
But Mom, I can't make any fire. I've tried everything.
Clearly not everything. Your fire should awaken given the right incentive.
Before Raiden has a chance to respond, Keita suddenly grabs the whip from her belt and ignites it with flame. She whips it at him with a bright burst of flame. Raiden staggers backwards and falls to the hard ground.
Please, Mom, don't.
Your inner fire will surely arise if your life is at stake.
In a flurry, Keita continues whipping at and around Raiden as he desperately crawls backwards to avoid as many fiery lashes as he can.
Come on, soldier, fight back with fire!
I can't!
Unrelenting, Keita intensifies her inferno of whiplashes as Raiden cowers in fear and hopelessness. Out of nowhere, Hakan launches himself in front of Raiden. He creates a barrier of fire to stop the whip. Slightly stunned, Keita stares back at Hakan with furrowed brows and narrowed eyes.
Move aside, Hakan.
I won't let you hurt my brother, even if he isn't a bender.
Remember this, my son. The glory of our nation comes first above all, even family.
Standing tall, Keita glances past Hakan and narrows her eyes at Raiden.
Fire is the means to maintaining our great nation and sharing our power with the world. Fire is life.
Without another word, Keita turns sharply and strides away from the twin boys. Slowly, Hakan turns and stares down at his wide-eyed and breathless brother.
Right,
As Hakan reaches out his hand to his brother, Raiden quickly swats it away and stands up.
Don't, Khan. Fire is your life. It's not mine. It never will be.
34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Misty Palms Oasis. On the outskirts of the Misty Palms Oasis settlement, Liana carries Michi out of their rented hut. She moves over to Isla lying down in the shade. A short distance away and facing the desert, Taki and Raiden sit on a small wooden bench as she heals his shoulder and head wounds with water.
Have you finished?
Yes, I believe so. How do you feel?
Lowering her hands, Taki returns the water to her pouches around her lower back. Raiden stands up.
Fine. No need to concern yourself any longer.
Well, I do. I'll always be concerned about your well-being.
Taki's voice trails off when she sees a small figure slowly approaching from the desert. She takes a few steps forward and narrows her eyes. Raiden moves next to her to look closer as well. A few moments later, both of their eyes grow wide as they realize the figure is Hakan. He stands at the top of a sand dune and clutches his bloody side.
It's Hakan.
Just as Hakan makes eye contact with Taki, his eyes roll back as he falls unconscious and tumbles down the sand dune. Without hesitation, Taki rushes forward, prompting Raiden to sprint after her.
Taki!
Seeing all of this, Liana stands and takes a few steps forward.
What's going on? Is that Hakan?
By now, Taki has made it over to Hakan, whose makeshift bandages have come loose. Ever so carefully, she rolls him onto his back and gasps at the sight of his long side wound, pale face, and shallow breath. Raiden comes and stands beside her.
He's in bad shape. He needs healing right now. Come on, help me get him to the hut.
As Taki starts to gently lift Hakan into a sitting position, she realizes Raiden hasn't moved and turns to look up at him.
Raiden, won't you help me? He's your brother.
Silent, Raiden looks down.
Your twin.
With a slow, quiet exhale, Raiden steps forward and helps Taki lift Hakan between them. Together, they carefully carry him back towards the hut. Unsure of what to do, Liana blinks in astonishment and moves to open the door for them. They take him into the second room and lay him gently on the bed.
I'd better bandage and heal his wound right away.
Without saying a word, Raiden exits the room and moves past Liana to leave the hut. Still unsure of what to do, Liana follows Raiden out.
I wonder what happened to him. Maybe his wound is from the great owl spirit in the library.
Facing away, Raiden doesn't respond.
Do you think he followed us all over the desert?
It would seem so.
Don't you think you should, I don't know, be with him? He is your brother after all.
We may look alike and share the same blood, but we aren't family. Not anymore.
Back in the hut, Taki quickly bandages Hakan's side and bends water onto her hands. Gently, she rests her glowing hands onto his side to steadily heal him. Still breathing faintly, Hakan continues to sweat and burn with fever. His head and arms twitch slightly as he begins mumbling quietly.
No. Wait, Rye, don't. Please.
Unsure of how to help him, Taki continues healing Hakan's wounds and stares at him with furrowed brows. 27 AG, Fire Nation, North Chungling. In the dead of night, Raiden slings a packed bag over his shoulder and quietly sneaks through the empty rooms of their house. Just as he walks out the back door and several paces forward, Raiden stops when he hears footsteps behind him.
So you're really leaving then?
Slowly, Raiden turns halfway back to see that Hakan is standing in the doorway.
Please, Rye, don't do this. Don't leave.
I don't belong here any longer. You hurt Mom the other day. I have no part in this family without fire.
Yeah, but you're still my brother. You can't just leave.
I have to, Khan. If I stay, Mom will... This isn't the place for me anymore. I need to find my own path.
With that, Raiden turns and starts walking away.
Rye, wait!
Stopping and glancing back, Raiden sees Hakan rush back into the house. A moment later, he reappears with their father's metal staff. He moves to his brother and holds it out to him.
If you insist on leaving, at least take this with you. Maybe someone in our family can finally have use for it.
Glancing down at the staff, Raiden slowly reaches out to take it with both hands. He looks up at his twin.
Thank you, Khan.
Raiden doesn't wait for a response from his brother. To keep from tearing up, Raiden quickly turns and walks away. As Hakan watches him go, a streak of lightning flashes across the sky, and a steady downpour descends upon them. 34 AG, Earth Kingdom, Misty Palms Oasis. Late into the night, Leanna slowly enters the room where Taki continues healing Hakan.
How's he doing?
Not too great. His wound is deep and he's lost a lot of blood. Also, he's extremely dehydrated and battling a fever.
But you can help him?
I'm doing everything I can, but he needs a lot of water and rest.
Gazing down at Hakan momentarily, Leanna studies him.
Should we really be helping him? I mean, he used to chase and attack us.
But he also saved us back in the library.
After setting fire to part of the collection, I guess I'm just saying we should be cautious, Taki, but go on and heal him.
With that, Leanna exits the room, leaving Taki alone healing Hakan's side. She studies his face as she does this.
Same face as Raiden's.
A few moments later, Taki withdraws her hands and water when she sees Hakan begin to stir. Gradually, he opens his eyes and blinks a few times before resting his gaze on Taki.
Taki.
You're far too chipper for someone as badly wounded as you are.
With a slightly pained expression on his face, Hakan glances down at his now bandaged side injury.
I guess this is what happens when you mess with a giant owl spirit.
He could have killed you, and you could have died wandering through the desert with such a severe injury.
Hakan meets Taki's gaze again, as a small grin appears on his face.
Good thing you were waiting here for me with your magic healing powers.
Taki can't help but smile back at him.
And apparently, healing isn't your only special bending ability. That was quite remarkable how you superheated the riverbed there.
Wait, you were there at our last battle?
Yeah, in the forest by the river. I saw everything.
So you've just been following us ever since then. What for?
Clearly, I'm still trying to capture the lightning shadow.
Narrowing her eyes, Taki focuses her gaze at Hakan.
That's not it, Hakan. Just like with Raiden, I can tell when you're lying.
Without a response, Hakan faces away from her.
Does you following us have something to do with how you're always protecting me?
Silent, Hakan remains facing the wall.
I have to ask, Hakan, why have you risked your life so many times to save me?
For the first time since she's met him, Taki's surprised to see Hakan glance down with uncertainty.
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure why I find myself determined to keep you safe. I suppose that's why I've been following you, to figure out why I'm so drawn to you.
Taki's mouth drops slightly as Hakan looks over at her with gentle eyes.
There's just something about you, Taki.
Feeling her face grow warm, Taki looks down and instinctively reaches up to touch her necklace. Hakan tilts his head slightly to the side as he studies her.
That stone necklace. It's been touched by fire.
My father made this for my mother when he proposed. It's a water tribe custom.
So a firebender and a waterbender truly fell in love. Anything's possible.
Lowering her hand, Taki glances over at Hakan with a small smile.
You know something, Hakan. I think this may be the first time I've seen you be, well, genuine.
Yeah, well, don't get used to it.
Before Hakan is able to say anymore, his eyes suddenly slide shut as he drifts into unconsciousness. In silence, Taki sits and studies him for several more minutes. Then she slowly stands and exits the room. She finds Leanna and Michi sleeping in the next room. Leaving the hut, Taki moves over to Isla, fast asleep outside the door. Gently, she pets her neck and head. Looking out at the desert beneath the starry sky, Taki notices Raiden standing alone on a wide sand dune facing the barren wasteland. Inhaling, Taki makes her way over to Raiden and stops next to him.
Just so you know, Hakan is doing better. He was in pretty rough shape, but he just needs plenty of rest and hydration.
Don't let your guard down, Taki. He's a Fire Nation soldier through and through.
But he saved us back in the library. Maybe this is the start of a change in him.
Hakan is not going to change over a few days after the years of training in the Fire Nation he's gone through.
Even so, he's still your brother. And he's hurt. You should at least go and see him.
He doesn't need me. Never has, and never will.
Before Taki can respond, Raiden turns and walks back. 28 AG, Fire Nation, North Chongling. At midday, 9-year-old Hakan performs a series of intense firebending moves as sweat slides down his temple. Keita stands nearby, stroking her whip. Breathing hard, Hakan finishes his moveset and lowers his arms as his heart pounds in his chest.
Again.
Wide-eyed, he turns to her.
What was wrong?
Without a second thought, Keita ignites her whip with fire and lashes Hakan on the arm.
Again!
But I've been at this all morning.
Keita whips Hakan again, only harder.
Again, soldier, that's in order.
Silently, Hakan looks down with a slow exhale. Narrowing his eyes, he begins firebending combinations once again. 28 AG, Western Air Temple. Completely alone, 9-year-old Raiden wanders through the empty stone halls of the Western Air Temple as a lightning storm rages outside. Coming to a wide open platform on the edge of the temple, Raiden stands overlooking a vast valley as the rain pours down and thunder cracks above. He grips his father's metal staff in one hand. Slowly, he turns around and walks towards a large mural on the far wall. It depicts several airbenders using their staffs to bend the air. Narrowing his eyes, Raiden raises his own staff and clutches it tightly with both hands. He then swiftly and perfectly replicates the airbender's staff positions. He continues doing this as the storm rages around him.
Thank you for listening to A Tale of the Sun and Moon by Megan Sly. This has been episode 14, Scarred, Part 1, Brothers. Voice talents included Michaela Case as the narrator, Sharia Bunce as Taki, Alec Leonard as Hakan, Dawson Elke as Raiden, Abby Day as Keita, Felicia Nicole as Liana, and Joshua Malley, Megan Sly, and Mitch Geigen as additional voices.